We're getting ready for some V8 action. The ITM Auckland Super Sprint, more like the ITM Auckland Super Splash out there today, Andy Jones, because it's wet. And this is on the formation lap down at the Sanyong Sweeper for the BNT V8s. Fancy running through that on a hot lap.
Which is your preference there, mate? Would you want to have been in that Falcon or the ITM safety car? I'm going to choose the safety car.
I think the safety car is the wise option. It'll be coming into the pits this time by. We're not far from a start here. In the BNT V8s, it's an old Toyota front row. Camry versus Camry. Andre Heimgartner, he was electric in the wet weather at the Gold Coast. How will he go here alongside Jason Bargwanna? Nick Ross and Lance Hughes in the Class 1 guys going at it towards the front of the field, with Brad Lathrope stepping up as well into Class 1. Bronson Porter has been very fast in our Group 2 category, all the way down through. Liam McDonald, still only young, but on a charge. He won Class 2 last year. Look for him. Also Chelsea Herbert, just 18 years of age. Class 3 drivers towards the back as well. So 2 separate grids. There'll be a little gap as they roll towards the start line here. Watch out for the Class 3 BMWs as well that are out there. As we get set to go racing in the BNT V8s, this is race number 1 of their season. Toyota versus Toyota, Heimgartner versus Bargwanna. And who knows what this weather has got planned for us. It's very wet and slippery as we go racing. Bargwanna is checked out. Heimgartner going nowhere, drops back to 3rd.
Has he got a problem in the back of that car? We know that he hit the fence pretty hard in qualifying yesterday, but it just seems to be going nowhere for Andre. We know he's fast in the rain, and he does not look comfortable in that car. Geez, they were close coming up to that start line there, weren't they?
Man, normally on top of each other.
Normally a car with gap between the 2 rows, but these guys really got together.
This will be where it's tricky. Visibility, newly paved racetrack, lots of standing water, and Heimgartner going very slowly up the inside. So unfortunately, those changes that they've had to make overnight with the damage, maybe something is awry. And Heimgartner, oh, as Nick Ross goes flying off in the Nissan, has issues. But how about Lance Hughes here? He's loving these conditions, pouring the pressure on through the Shell V-Power chicane. For Nick Ross, he'll rejoin. And gets on in front of the BMW, lets the BMW go by. What a shame for Andre Heimgartner, the pole sitter.
So definitely an issue for him. Now, whether or not it's related to that big impact that he had in qualifying with the left rear of that car coming out onto the final corner, we don't know.
Wow, these two have checked out completely. They're up the road. Timpoli in the ex-Brock Cooley TLX entry, swapping spots here. And Heimgartner, sadly, is returning to the pit stop pits. Bit of breathing room for Bargs. Out the front, fighting with Lance Hughes. He's locked it up, and he'll skate off into the gravel. The leader is off, and he'll get away with it. He'll lose 1 or 2 spots. Could have been worse. Jeez, these conditions, treacherous.
Very lucky for Bugs. I was surprised at how much curb he used through turn 2 then. I feel like that was the catalyst for Bugs running off at 3. He just really motored that curb, and when you're inside the car and you use too much curb on those painted lines, you just lose all grip and all traction. So not only from the front of the car when you're steering, but when you try to land on the other side, you're just off the wrong line. And just see, as soon as he tried to turn the car to the right, it just kept going straight ahead. We're going to have a look at the replay here, and just look how much curb he uses here. He's right up the inside of the... It didn't land well, it pushed him wide, and he ran through that puddle. And as soon as he got to the puddle on the right-hand side at turn 3, the wet weather Dunlop is a very good tyre, but it couldn't move that amount of water in one go, and Bargs lost all steering.
Andre Heimgartner going back out on track. He could not see. That windscreen was completely fogged up. The team have given it a wipe with, like we saw the Red Bull Holt Racing team do at Bathurst. They've gotten in there with a fully doused anti-fog, but I think that may not help him too much to the rest of this race.
Oh, so there was no mechanical issue with that car camera. It was visibility.
Yeah, completely visibility, and it was very fogged.
Wow, and he was starting off the front row.
Wow, that's disappointing for Andre. I'm sure there's people at home thinking, why didn't he just put his front demister on? So these cars don't have that option, and when they fog up, it is one of the worst feelings. You literally cannot see. It's like somebody puts their hand over your eyes and expects you to be able to drive around. As we go on board here, here's a great shot. We on board with Lance Hughes here?
This will be Nick Ross, I believe.
Nick Ross. So that was a great shot. And keep in mind, Nick Ross has got good visibility in his car, so you can imagine what it would have been like for Andre when the windscreen was fully fogged up. It's basically a whiteout and you can't see, so not too good. Disappointing as well, such a simple problem.
This is what it was like as he tried to get his car arrested at turn 5. And that is a tricky crossover point from the new to old tarmac there. Plus, it's a long right-hand sweeper on the entrance. Getting the car stopped at turn 5 today will be tricky business.
And just a rear brake locking moment there. So you can see over on the right-hand side of our shot, that yellow dial, that is the brake bias adjuster. So the drivers within these cars can regulate how much pressure is going to the front of the car on the brakes and how much pressure is going to the rear. So normally you have a bit more front pressure than rear, so you don't have rear locking. But in the rain and these wet conditions like this, generally you'll go 2, maybe 3 full turns to the rear so that you don't have a front lock, because if you lock a tyre in this condition, you lose all steering ability. So I think what's happened there for Nick Ross, he's just too far rearward on that bias, and he'll just need to manage that. He'll play with that a little as the race goes on. We just saw Bargs end up in a similar position. The other thing that's playing into this is, from what we heard from everybody, was that there's a lot of oil being released from the resurface down at turn 5, so they've probably got good braking balance everywhere on the circuit, except when they get to turn 5. So a little bit of management needed here.
Now, there was a change for the lead. The Hamilton Asphalt's entry of Lance Hughes was leading us by, and the BMW of Griffin has moved forward. So invitational class BMW leading the way at the moment.
Coming to the fore in these conditions. This is one of the exciting parts when you have a couple of different categories all within the one race is...
Oh, that's big. That could be really nasty. Thankfully, some heads-up driving.
Great presence of mind there from everybody involved. Farrier still going backwards.
Man, that was a monstrous spin from the guy who finished 5th in Class 2 last year.
So we were just talking about the different classes within the one group. So normally in the dry, Griffin in his BMW doesn't have anything on these other guys, but in these conditions, a little less power probably being coming from that car is making it a little easier to get on the throttle, whereas we see these guys, even in a straight line, Bargs and Hughes, just struggling to keep the rear wheels from lighting up and turning into wheel spin.
November in New Zealand. It is hammering down today. Similar conditions to when Bargwana won the Bathurst 1000 back in the year 2000. In Garth Tander, it was pouring all day long.
I'm not sure we should limit these type of weather conditions to just November in New Zealand.
Yes, it is tricky for visibility, tricky for grip.
Our resident weather guru Neil Crompton has just wandered into the comms box, has purchased himself a poncho, and he looks very resplendent in it.
Fancy sitting out in the crowd today. It has not kept the fans away. They've got the brollies up there on the ITM mountain, and they're witnessing some pretty good racing if they can see it, because this is the fight for the lead. Race 1, BNC V8's going off right now. BMW versus Holden versus Toyota. 4 different manufacturers filling the top 4 spots at the moment.
Just watching Bargs in P3 there, he's the guy that looks more committed out of everybody. We'll watch when we get to the braking area at 5, and look at the back of that car squirming, even in a straight line. But we saw a shot earlier of his run up to the hairpin, and he had that car, 4 wheels, sliding across the road. Really pull it up on this ice skating rink.
Man, that was twitchy. It was fishtailing the entire way down the backstretch. That was amazing driving.
And it's
from
this
Jason
next run
Bargwana.
here, even with a little bit of right hand down, trying to turn around this very small kink. Look at him, he's just battling to keep it on the road. Trying to make up for that earlier mistake at turn 2-3 complex.
Oh, it's still a visibility issue for Andre Heimgartner, to the point where it's just not even worth it. Filling in for Sam Barry here this weekend. Great to have Andre Heimgartner back racing on home soil. And particularly with the Richmond Motorsport team. And now the leader comes in, and I wonder if this is also visibility related as well. Doesn't look to be fogging up too badly.
No, we can clearly see him through the front windscreen, so other problems for Griffin there. That's disappointing. Always a bad feeling when you're leading the race relatively comfortable and you've got to come into the pit lane.
So this puts Jason Bargwanna back at the point. It's the Hamilton Asphalt entry squirming around trying to catch him. Now, did that BMW just go straight through and exit the pits again?
Yeah, absolutely it did. That was a weird one.
Must have been a drive-through.
All I can think is I wonder...
Okay, we've got it stuck in the lane.
Sorry for the confusion.
Yeah.
We thought we just saw him drive past our commentary box window. So
maybe it was Heimgartner exiting again.
Something a bit more terminal there for Matt Griffin.
What a shame. One of 3 BMWs running in the Invitational class. They look like they want to send him back out there, and that's what they're doing. He's been driving steadily up from row 3 in this race to be at one point leading back in class 2. Fair fight here with Nigel Carl, class 3 champion from last year. These guys really struggling in these conditions right now.
It's interesting to watch those guys come down that main straight, very much in the centre line of the road. My take on that, those white lines that set the grid here, in these conditions will just be enough to flare the rear tyres up. So they're staying away from that. So if we see that again, that's the reason why those guys are driving down the centre line. We don't see that too often.
Yeah, true. It's almost what they were doing at Bathurst this year, trying to avoid the grid markings. It's Chelsea Herbert now. The 18-year-old runs it off and wide down through turn 5, just going through the obstacle course that's put down there.
Very offset gear lever in that car, so quite an interesting angle, and the reason that that is so far offset is just to get it across a little bit closer to Chelsea. Never seen one at a right angle though.
So tough one for Griffin BMW, guys. He does not have a rain light and went through a mechanical black flag 3 times. They brought him in. He does have tail lights. It's not mandatory in this category normally for the BMWs to have the rain light, but they came in, checked the tail light, sent him back out again. The officials said we had to bring him in because he went past that mechanical black flag 3 times.
Right, okay, thank you for that one, Cameron. And what a shame. Just those little things. Now Bargwanna's into traffic. Driving with a great deal of confidence right now. Jason Bargwanna, more fogging up issues. And that'll be for Bronson Porter in the Dinsdale drywall entry.
Unfortunate that the worst amount of fogging for him is right in his line of sight. We can see that little clear V section in the front of the windscreen. Same here. I'd say the reason for the excursion across the grass there for Bronson was purely down to vision. Wasn't sure where to be stopping.
Look at this. We go back on board with Nick Ross. His visibility is getting worse as well. Short shifting up through the gears, trying to find some grip out there. I actually have no idea where on the racetrack that is. I'm completely lost now. Oh. This is remarkable driving. Oh, there we go. We're on the back straight.
That is a great shot.
Wow.
Because I'll tell you what, the TV camera inside this car is not doing justice to just how tricky that is for Nick Ross.
Oh, every gear shift, it's cracking sideways. Every time he goes to put that right foot down, he gets sideways, and he's trying to reel in Lance Hughes. It's the fight for second. Good points up for grabs. This team's been working on reliability with the Nissan Altima, trying to just finish every race. They gave away some pretty good positions last year. Even a race win at Pukekohe slipped because of responsibility issues.
And he has got a fair bit of pace inside that car, Nick Ross. He is bridging that gap across to Lance Hughes, but in these conditions, the smallest of error is going to cost you. Once you lose that traction and that grip, you pretty much become a passenger.
So last time by, he was 1.3 seconds quicker than Lance Hughes. Jason Bargwanna 2 seconds quicker than Hughes that last time by. So Bargwanna definitely the fastest driver in the race right now.
There we go. We can see the gap between Hughes and Nick Ross. We expect that to come down quite a lot.
So that's the front three. Bargwanna, Hughes, Ross. And then half a minute back, P4. Big, big gap these guys have broken out. For Nick Ross, this is his 15th season in this category as he slips his way up to the Husqvarna hairpin in the Total Ultima. And like we said earlier, they've been working on that reliability and they've redesigned the oil system in this car over the last 2 years. Won the championship back in 2014. 42-year-old from Cambridge.
I wonder if he was part of the Cambridge rowing team when he was living there, because that might be helping him out a bit in this amount of water. These guys will be literally every lap changing their lines, searching for the least wet part of the circuit. Now, there's probably people listening to me going, least wet part of the circuit. Man, look at it. It is absolutely saturated. But I guarantee you we could see there through turn 3, big puddle on that right-hand side of the road. The difference between driving through that puddle on the right-hand side of the road and not is the difference between probably being able to carry a couple of Ks more speed through the corner. So, you know, this is the tricky bit about being good in the wet, and we talk about guys from New Zealand being good in the wet because, you know, they run in these conditions fairly regularly.
They live it.
Absolutely, yeah. They do. And it's a searching game. You're just looking for little gains. Where can I get on the throttle that little bit earlier? Where can I carry 1K more? Oh, I've carried 1K more and I've gone off the road. You know, it's this very fine line between being able to reel somebody in and possibly ending up in the fence or on the grass.
Well, that last lap, the front three guys were all 3 seconds quicker than the previous lap. Those gains you talk about, they're finding monstrous gains, and your good friend, Jack Smith, Brad Jones racing driver, sitting P5 at the moment. The young man from the Gold Coast fighting on in these conditions as well.
And that's what Bargs is doing there. He's searching. You could see he was nowhere near the apex through the final corner, and that's because he's worked out that it's too wet through there. And also you could see he didn't run all the way out to the exit. He was able to gain more traction by staying in the center of the road. Look at the amount of water being dispersed there from those Dunlop wets. Crazy, so much standing water. It's going to liven things up for the Supercars qualifying session that follows this race, isn't it?
Dramatically. Oh, Bargwanna, every time he grabs a gear, the back end of that car steps around. The last time by, he was slower than the drivers in second and third, so they're finding their form, Hughes and Ross. The wiper on this car not working either, making life worse for Jason Bargwanna.
If you had to choose, though, between the wiper not working and the fogging up, you would take the wiper not working every day of the week, because the fogging becomes pretty much just a whiteout. At least a bit of pace in the car will disperse some of that water from the windscreen.
Check this out. Speaking of dispersing the water, it's Brock Timperley, 23-year-old from Auckland, in the erosion control Falcon, formerly driven by Brock Cooley to the 15-16 TLX Championship or Class 2 Championship.
Possibly might get some work out of this rain that's bucketing down at the moment. Might need to call on his sponsor.
That is an amazing slow motion shot. There's Bargwanna slipping his way through the Sangyong sweeper as well. The gap, 2.9 seconds. He was quicker that last lap by. How about this battle pack? This is brave. 3 wide action. Oh, how's the aquaplaning? And what a save.
Wow.
That was a big save from McCarrison. Nearly got away from him. Man.
If it wasn't for the headlights, we wouldn't even know there was any cars out there.
Nerve-wracking conditions.
Look at the vision, or the lack of vision for these guys.
More traffic now for Jason Bargwanna to deal with, and this could see his 2.9 second lead evaporate.
He needs to be careful here, Bargs. Trying to navigate your way through this lap traffic. There is a pretty big speed difference between the Class 1 and Class 2 guys, so just needs to be patient, and he needs to make sure that they've seen him. So we had some onboard shots before. Both the driver and passenger side windows in the majority of cars that I can see here are very fogged up. So the guys are not going to be able to look out their side mirrors I guarantee you they won't be able to see out the back mirror either. So he just needs to be pretty patient here, pretty calm. But the good thing that Bargs has got in his, I guess, bag of artillery here is that when it is really, really wet like this, talk about threading the needle, that was brave.
That was nice.
When it is really, really wet like this, he's not having to step out of that dry line. It is the same amount of wet everywhere. So, you know, pretty tricky for Bargs, but he's doing a good job. Been around a long time, very highly experienced.
Fight for second with traffic to deal with as well. Podjerski on debut here, just going wide and getting out of the way of second and third coming through.
Nick Ross is looking at this as an opportunity that he'd like to meet. See if he can't get past Lance Hughes.
2.5 laps remain in these tricky conditions. Bargwanna now with a couple of lappers in between these guys, and here comes the move. The Nissan goes to the inside. Can he stop it? It's squirming around down at turn 5. They go side by side. Good racing. And the Hamilton Asphalt's entry prevails, hanging on to P2. Great car control.
Couldn't get the job done.
Whee, there goes Nick Ashwell. Can he gather this car back up? He'll spin right in front of this battle pack. Oh, and it happens in between the Hamilton Asphalt's entry and the total Nissan. And unfortunately, Nick Ross had to slam on the brakes. Did an amazing job to miss him, but that'll settle that battle.
Great presence of mind there from Nick Ross to see that all happening. We're going to get a replay of this.
Gee, that was a big lose.
Felt like it was happening for a long time from Ashwell. And in fairness to him, he probably was on the brake trying to stop the car from rolling, but there's so much water out there that the car's just sliding across the road. But well done, Nick Ross. He's just spent the last 5 laps trying to bridge that gap.
This would be awesome. Here we go.
He's got to the back at Lance Hughes, and then all of a sudden, there's a roadblock.
Good driving. Nick Ross. That was impressive. Justin Ashwell came flying around in front of him and had only really had about 30 laps experience here, Justin, and that was a good bit of driving. Now, how about this? Jack Smith must have had an issue. He's dropped from 5th down to 8th. Now he's about to be lapped on the last lap by Jason Bargwanna. The 2 Australians in the field go at it. This has been a pretty stirring drive from Jason Bargwanna. Just that one mistake earlier where he ran off down at turn 2 and 3, but the Tiger Building Systems Toyota Camry is going to pick up a win here. Just needs to bring it home these last 3 corners. This will be one of the toughest races we've seen Jason Bargwanna compete in. It'll go a lap shy of the full distance. He had traffic, he had weather, he had visibility issues. He's put up with it all, and the crowd here will see an Aussie win in the NZ V8s. Nice work. Race 1 of the season for the BNC V8s goes to Jason Bargwanna, a 2-time champion in this category. Makes the move from Falcon back to Camry and gets the win. And that is a nice effort from Lance Hughes picking up P2. Nick Ross probably happy to just have that Ultima in one piece after the moment down there at the Husqvarna hairpin. And that race went safety car free.
That surprises me. I would have had money on seeing the safety car come out at some point during that race, particularly with what we saw in the muscle car event earlier. Carnage on lap 1. These guys have done a tremendous job to get through without seeing the safety car come out and take them under control.
Wowee. Take a bow. Jason Bargwanna under some heavy pressure there. When he got to the traffic, he had a 2-second lead. At the end of the race, he had an 8-second lead. So the traffic really played into his hands nicely. Nick Ross finishing up in P3. Nugent first of our invitational classes. He finished P4. Liam McDonald, we didn't see too much of him, but winning Class 2, did a really good job. He passed nearly 10 cars out there.